All right, it's Thursday, May 7th. I'm here with Cha-Cha, with Anna, in the new Behind the Table studios. How are you today, Anna?
I'm sleepy. You know, I have been...
Are you hungover again?
No, I'm not hungover, unfortunately. I have been pulling a lot of, night duty at CNN. Mm-hmm. I'm like the Marco Rubio of TV, right? I work at The View.
Different uniforms for everything.
I work at CNN. I work at my own podcast. Mm-hmm. I do this podcast. Damn. Like, is there any job? Why is it that Latinos always get stuck with having to do 4 and 5 jobs?
What's your caffeine situation? Because, you know, people are interested in what you're drinking. You don't drink American coffee. We've talked about this. Right now, I am mainlining both. I've got a Celsius in here, and this is my second coffee of the morning of the same size. This is what I need to get through the day. I feel like we need to get you like an adrenaline shot in Pulp Fiction.
My problem is, so I do iced tea, but my problem is the only coffee I like is the Cuban coffee that's made in Miami. Like in my house, I have Cuban coffee every day. When I'm in Miami, I have Cuban coffee every day, but it's just...
There's no Cuban coffee in New York City? There has to be.
Honest to goodness, no coffee tastes good to me other than Cuban coffee. Like when I travel with a Cuban cafetera, with Cuban coffee that I buy at the store in Miami, like Café Bustelo, and my little thing to make it. That's how I travel.
All right. Well, we have to get someone traveling with you and preparing your Cuban coffee for you.
I mean, if it wasn't a fire hazard, I think I would bring my own little Bunsen burner here and do it.
All right.
Is it a fire hazard?
It probably is, yes.
Am I allowed to have a little burner in my office?
Probably not. No, I don't think so. I'll look into it.
God only knows the things that could be burnt.
I'll look into it. All right. Let's talk about this White House ballroom. We've been trying to talk about it on the show all week, but other things keep happening. Trump has said many, many, many times that this would be funded entirely by private donors. The price tag for even the private donors has gone up significantly since he first started talking about it, 200, 300, 400 million. But now the Republicans have released an immigration and border patrol bill that includes $1 billion for security improvements in the overall ballroom project. Now, he stated this is not something that's going to be for, you know, the marble or something else. It's all about the bunker portion. But what do you make of this?
I just think it's one of these, another example of where Republicans and Trump think people are stupid. Do they think we are going to forget that time and time again, he and his minions said that this would be a gift from him and his friends, that it would be rich people paying for this, that it would not cost the American people a dime, that it was a zero cost. In fact, like a day, 2 days after the White House Correspondents' Dinner Association, they ran to court, right? Because right now there's an injunction on the building of the construction by a federal judge. And now and they ran to court with a legal filing, and the legal filing, so this is 10 days ago, said this is going to cost zero, no cost, it's a gift from me. The legal filing read like a Trump tweet. And then just hours later, Lindsey Graham and a group of Republicans are introducing, at first it was they were going to ask for $400 million in the budget. Now it's gone up to $1 billion. There's a few things about this that just strike me as rather rich. One, let's remember, this is the same Trump administration. His DOJ has been wanting to haul Jerome Powell, the Fed chair,
cost overruns,
right, to court. For corruption over cost overruns and the renovation of the Treasury buildings. So his cost overruns now, I mean, they're not even cost overruns. They're like cost over marathons, right? I mean, you're talking, like you said, he began saying it was going to cost $200 million. Then it went up to $300 million. Then they said $400 million, and it was going to be paid by all his rich cronies. Now it's $1.5 billion, because it's now the $400 million plus the $1 billion. And here's the thing. He tore down the East Wing without telling anybody anything or consulting it with anybody. So there's this gaping hole now. And so now what they say to you is, oh, but what are we going to do? Have you been by the White House lately? Are we going to leave a gaping hole there? Well, you did the gaping hole. You made the gaping hole. Did you not think before you were making this gaping hole, okay, what are we going to fill it with? What's it going to cost? He just did it because he thought, okay, once I do it, like I have a friend who was a builder who used to do this. Mm-hmm. He used to get fined by the city because he used to do things without permitting. And he would say to me, so what? Afterwards, they come in and they just find me, and I'm able to do what I want to do that they wouldn't have approved. I think that is Donald Trump's builder mentality in place. But now they say, yeah, but this is not for the construction of the ballroom. This is for security stuff. The funds can only be used for security stuff. Well, okay, did they not think about that before they made the gaping hole? Honestly, I think we should leave the gaping hole there, his entire administration, and then see what, we fill it with.
Yeah, it's fascinating.
And it's also, listen, it's jarring because it's coming at a time when Americans are paying $6 for gas.
Well,
when Americans, I just read this week that there's, a record number of Americans that have had to drop health insurance because without the subsidies and with all the economic issues, they just can't continue affording it. So Americans who actually signed up for health insurance have now stopped paying their premiums and have lost health insurance. It's, and you hear what's his name? The chief economic advisor in the White House, Kevin Hastert, something like that. He was on TV yesterday talking about how the economy was wonderful because banks had been in there in the White House showing him how people are spending more on their credit cards. Did you see this?
I did, yes.
And did you not think to yourself, how tone deaf are these people? Do they not realize that Americans are incurring record credit card debt, are carrying record credit card debt? The average credit card debt right now with an American is like $6,500. And so many people are making minimum payments and paying a 22% interest rate. How in the world does a guy who calls himself an economic advisor think that indicates that the American economy is doing great? No, American people are being drowned by debt that they will never be able to repay because they can't fill up their tanks because filling up your tank now costs $150.
This is Kevin Hassett, the director of the National Economic Council.
His name should be Kevin Hackett because he's such a hack.
Well, here's my question, because say what you want about the administration, they must understand the fact that politically this is not going to look good for people going on. Do you think they just don't care? I mean, there are midterms coming up. The idea that suddenly we're going to try to put through legislation for $1 billion.
That's why, I think that's one of the reasons Trump goes out there and Marco goes out there, Rubio, and says the war is over. Of course, number one, they're trying to pull the wool over Congress's eyes and over the American people's eyes. And what they're doing is renaming it, right? Operation Epic Fury is over. Now we're at a different stage. It's now called Operation, what is it called? Freedom or something? And it's of course because if they continued, it's now at the point where they would have to seek congressional authorization. So they're doing this too cutesy by half thing of, let's call it something else and let's pretend that we're starting a new phase so that we get the clock running again. And that's why you see them running to try to get a ceasefire and to try to get some sort of agreement. They have
Epic Fury is over, but freedom reigns or whatever it is the new thing.
The new thing. So it's just, it's just stupid. It's, again, pretending thinking the American people are stupid and are not going to realize what they are doing. And then they keep saying things like, I don't know how many times I have heard Trump and his staff say, and his people on TV, like I'm on TV, on CNN debating this stuff all the time. And his defenders go on there and say, oh, but it's, it's short-term pain. And it's worth Iran not having nuclear weapons. And, it'll be, just a few more months. And people, they just, have to buy their daughter less dolls. Instead of buying your daughter 30 dolls for Christmas, buy her 2 dolls. And people have to buy, less pencils. And what Trump, who lives in a billionaire bubble, surrounded by billionaires at Mar-a-Lago, by billionaires in his cabinet, by, the billionaires who show up and suck up to him on a daily basis, the Jeff Bezos and Tim Cooks of the world. What he doesn't realize, what they don't realize is that the amount of people in America who don't have the luxury to endure short-term pain, the amount of people in America who don't make ends meet already, who live paycheck to paycheck or worse. And so for them, having to all of a sudden go from a tank of gas that costs $50 to one that costs $75, that is unendurable. For them, having to go to the grocery store and see their dollar buy less and less every time, that is unendurable. All my rich friends, and I got a ton of rich friends, all my rich friends say the same thing. Oh, we just gotta wait out the market. We just gotta wait out the market. Well, people who can't afford to put gas in their cars are not looking at their stock portfolios because they don't have stock portfolios, and they don't have the ability to wait out the market. And so to me, that level of insensitivity and tone deafness, pretending that affordability is some sort of made up term by Democrats, it's just like we are living in two different universes. The universe of the ultra rich, and by ultra rich, I mean really rich people who have more than $50 million. Because I don't think having $1 million makes you rich in America anymore. I don't think having $5 million makes you rich in America anymore. But these ultra rich people, of whom there are more and more in America every day, and who are the ones surrounding Trump and speaking to Trump and with access to Trump, are completely oblivious to the pain that this other universe of Americans, which is a much larger universe, are feeling. And it's just, you see the difference that they're living in parallel worlds, and they just don't get that the level of pain that Americans are feeling. What our farmers are going through, that has got me out of my mind. The amount of bankruptcies that farmers have had to file in America, the fact that they have not been able to secure or afford fertilizer for this crop planting season, which means they're going without fertilizer, some of them. So the yield of the crops is going to be very diminished. And the price of food is then going to increase when it comes harvesting time, because the field that used to give you, the plant that used to give you 10 pieces of corn is now going to yield 5. I mean, and we're doing what? At the same time that the American people are watching this government send $40 billion to Argentina, spend $1 billion on a ballroom they told us was going to be free. The guy is walking around with renditions of his ballroom and his arch, and is painting the reflecting pool Mar-a-Lago blue, so it's like, what world is this man living in?
It's an excellent question. I got another one for you. Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick admitted to having prolonged ties to Jeffrey Epstein in a closed-door interview with the House Oversight Committee as part of the Epstein investigation. Now, he's not been accused of any wrongdoing and said he's done nothing wrong here. What do you make of this?
He's such a pathetic liar and such a bad liar. So, I think a lot of this emanates from the fact that shortly before the Epstein files, the first tranche of Epstein files, because let's remember, there's still 3 million files that DOJ is refusing to release, and that we must continue pressing them to release. But when the first 3 million were released, shortly before that, he'd gone on this podcast. And I remember I was so struck by that podcast. I talked about it on the show several times because I was just so struck by why is it that Howard Lutnick could, be with Jeffrey Epstein one time. And that one time, those 5 minutes, those 10 minutes they spent together was enough for Howard Lutnick and his wife to say, we are never, ever again going to be under the same roof with this guy, not for philanthropic reasons, not for financial reasons, not for social reasons. At the same time that he knew there were receipts in these files proving exactly the opposite. So what level of like just liar do you have to be to, knowing that you could be proven wrong, just go out there and lie like that? Because I would like to think that if I was going to lie about something that there were like receipts records about, I would tread carefully.
Well, Lutnick has again said that he's not been accused of any wrongdoing, and said that he had no personal or professional relationship with Epstein. I haven't asked, but
He was on his island.
I assume
He
also
took his children.
I assume
he took his entire yacht to his island. Does that? I mean, in my book, that qualifies as a personal relationship because I don't know that I could, I don't know that I could write one of my rich friends. I don't know that I could write. What's his name? Richard Branson.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know him from Adam, right? Never met him. I don't know that I could get Richard Branson's email and write him and say, hey, I've read about Necker Island and the Virgin Islands. I would love to be able to swing by. I mean,
I think you might be able to, though. That's the thing. And then
should I try it?
I think we should find out for the people here at the podcast. Reach out later today. I'll get you his email.
You have Richard Branson's email?
I do. I actually do. From when he was on the Letterman show. I have it. Yes.
You know what? Let's give it a shot.
That's right. And we'll see if he'll let you come to the island.
Anyways, back to being serious.
Yes.
They obviously had a personal relationship. He can deny it all he wants, but he obviously had a personal relationship. Donald Trump obviously was one of the man's best friends, Epstein's best friend for over a decade. I mean, let's just stop pretending.
Yeah. Now, I know there's a story that has caught your eye about 18-year-old Kevin Gonzalez. Tell me about this.
I am sick about this. I first started seeing it online. Joaquin Castro, congressman from San Antonio, who has become a hero, highlighting these horrible stories of cruelty by the Trump administration and DHS and ICE, started talking about it and putting it on social media. This is a U.S. citizen, born in Chicago, young man, 18 years old, who has stage 4 colon cancer, which in itself is horrifying.
Yeah.
He is in his dying days. If you see him, he is emaciated, and he clearly looks like he has weeks or days
and just a kid
to live. And he's just a kid. And all this kid wants, I don't even know that I can talk about this without, all this kid wants as he's dying is to see his parents. Think about that. Think about that. This kid knows he's dying, and all he wants is to see his parents. And his parents, who were in Mexico, tried to get into the country, and they got detained by ICE. And they are being held in a detention facility in Arizona. And the only thing they need to be is released so they can go see their kid, who is now in Mexico because he went to his grandmother's house in Durango, Mexico. And that this cruel, inhumane administration is incapable of having the compassion to release these parents so they can go see their 18-year-old boy whose dying wish is to spend his last hours with his parents. And that then they stand up in a podium wearing big fat crosses and quoting the Bible and talking about compassion and empathy and Christianity and lecturing people. How dare they be this hypocritical? How dare they be this cruel? And how are the American people not sick about it? And that is why I will never, ever, they want us to forget the cruelty in Minneapolis. They want us to forget the deaths of Alex Preddy and Renee Good and the young men in Texas. They want us to forget the little 5-year-old Liam Ramos Conejo and all the other 4,000 children they have in detention. I will be damned if I let people forget it. I will be damned. And they want us to forget it because they know that people are going to go out and vote against this.
And to be clear, they don't have to let these people into our country. They just need to let them go home.
They are being held in detention. Release them, for God's sakes. Release them. They're going in front of a judge today. I hope that judge has the compassion of releasing them. But they have lost precious time with an 18-year-old boy who does not have time to lose.
I really hope it goes that way today. I also want to talk about what's happening here in New York. There's been a lot of talk about New York City Mayor Mamdani and billionaire Ken Griffin. It all started when Mamdani singled out this billionaire by standing in front of his $238 million penthouse on tax day to push his tax the rich agenda. Now, Griffin's threatened to pull major projects in Manhattan that would potentially create thousands of jobs. Talk to me about the significance of this.
You know, I think Mamdani has done a pretty good job. I didn't know much about it, and I think he's been really good, particularly in doing public relations. Right, like after that horrible snowstorm. We saw him with
Out there
shoveling
with
the
the
snow
shovel, yeah.
out there, and he handled the snowstorm well and things like that. So for somebody who had zero experience, management experience and things like that, I thought he'd done a really good job. And obviously, part of the reason that he got elected, Mandani, is because he was so good in social media. I think this is a rare, huge, stupid, short-sighted mistake by Mandani. I don't disagree with the policy of charging people who have a second home here, who are not permanent residents of the city, more than you charge somebody who is a permanent resident of the city. Frankly, that happens in many places. That happens in Florida. I, as a permanent resident of Florida, have a homestead exemption and loopholes that we all can claim who live there permanently, that somebody who has a second home in Florida cannot claim, and therefore they pay higher taxes, a higher tax rate than I do. There is, to me, nothing controversial about that. People who live in this city, who are residents of New York City, pay 14% more in taxes, in income taxes, between state taxes and city taxes than somebody who doesn't live in this city pays. Now, I don't have an issue with the policy. What I have an issue with is his tactics, and I think they were incredibly irresponsible. Just, was it last year, we saw the CEO of United Healthcare be hunted down by Luigi Mangione and shot in the streets of New York, just a few blocks from where Ken Griffith lives. So for the mayor to go stand in front of Ken Griffith's building, point to his house, to me, that is doxing and putting Ken Griffin in the crosshairs of some triggered nutcase. It is, and I'll say this, Ken Griffin has now moved to Miami. I don't know him. I know his ex-wife. I have met his children.
I was going to ask, have you been to his island? Yes.
He's got several now. And this guy is a good corporate citizen. He has single-handedly changed the face of philanthropy in Miami. He has made gifts to every hospital, to every school, he does that when he shows up. He is also building a huge business complex here in New York, has tons of business activity. If Ken Griffin picks up and leaves, if he picks up and leaves and takes it with him to Miami,
it'll hurt the city.
It'll hurt the city. And what it's doing is it's sending a chilling message to all the other very wealthy people who have business activity and second homes here, that Mandani is hostile to them. But I just think that for a guy who has seemed very likable, Mandani, has that great smile. You see him singing to children.
Seen him at our
this
table,
idea, he doxed Ken Griffin. And I criticize Donald Trump when he tweets or posts something that demonizes an American citizen for, because for political reasons, which I then think puts those people in danger. Well, I think this puts Ken Griffin and his children in danger. And I think it's an irresponsible and stupid thing for Mandani to have done. And I think Mandani should apologize for it. I think he should seek a meeting with Ken Griffin and say to him, you know what, that was a mistake, and I'm sorry I did that. I find it out of character. And he did it as a stunt. He did it for clicks. I mean, that little video of him tapping the glass of the camera and saying, hey, Ken Griffin, I'm coming for you. That, has got like 50 million, 60 million clicks. He did it for the social media clicks. And what he's not realizing is that for that stunt could cost the city billions of dollars, and is putting somebody who spends considerable time and money in this city, Ken Griffin, and other multi-billionaires like that, in harm's way. That is not acceptable. I
do want to point out that Luigi Mangione is accused but not convicted of that killing. His trial's still upcoming. We'll be talking about it, I'm sure. All right, quickly, before we go, I know you love a cruise, so I want to discuss this story about the hantavirus outbreak on the cruise ship that has caused 3 deaths so far. It seems like an absolute nightmare, and now there's concerns about an outbreak here in the United States or potentially around the world. There's a lot of conspiracy theories going on online, of course, as these things happen. What are you making of all this?
Well, I do love a cruise. I've gone down the rabbit hole.
Yeah, you would not be on
this
this cruise ship, I don't
No,
think.
I would not be in this cruise ship. First of all, it looks like a floating toaster, but also it's going to like far off remote places. So this was some some Dutch couple who got off the cruise in like some small kind of place in Argentina I'd never heard of it. I can't even pronounce it. That's how remote it is. It's like Uyasha or something like that, where there was this landfill and they were bird watching. Okay, I'm not going bird watching, and I'm certainly not going bird watching in a landfill. I am not getting off anywhere to go visit a landfill or be anywhere near this landfill. So I guess that's where they got in contact, had contact with these rodents that have this particular strain of this what's it called? Hantavirus?
Hanta, yeah.
I can't pronounce it. So there's this particular strain of this virus that makes it contagious person to person, people to people contact.
We didn't think it was before.
Freaking terrifying.
Yes.
Yeah, because remember, this is the same virus that we heard about earlier in the year,
Gene
because this is
Hackman
what
and his
Gene
wife.
Hackman's
Yeah.
wife. No, I think Gene Hackman's wife died of it, and then he
died
died
taking care
of
of
like
it.
starvation.
Yeah.
After, because he had dementia after the wife died. But we heard about it. But they were like in I don't know, in the boonies in New Mexico, and there was rat droppings. But we heard about it as something that you caught from rats, not
Right.
from a person. What was interesting to me, though, is the reaction of people in the United States and around the world. First, people are in a panic because apparently, RFK Jr., amongst all the other stupid stuff he's done, he's cut off funding for being able to do tracing for things like this, and particularly related to cruise ships and what we do in a case like this. Remember, we saw this during COVID, where there were people who couldn't dock, where there were these, these boats out there in the middle of nowhere that weren't allowed to disembark anywhere. They were supplied with food, but they weren't allowed to disembark their people. And that's what's happening all over again. I was in the makeup room at CNN yesterday, and I cannot tell you the amount of big-hearted, wonderful, sweet people in that makeup room who I've known for years saying, "Shut the door. Shut the door now. We don't want them here. We don't want them anywhere. Let them deal with it inside that boat. We can't," I think I think we all have PTSD from COVID.
Of course we do. Of course we do.
I just think, obviously, we in America and all over the world are a lot more conscious today and sensitive to just how quickly how quickly a virus can spread and cause worldwide damage.
Absolutely. No, it's scary. I mean, you could be any day now. You could be wearing a turban and on Zoom again doing.
You know
the
what?
View.
I can't. I would have to. I would have to break my boycott of Amazon and go buy a new set of turbans, because I gave my old turbans to my friend's mom, who was going through chemotherapy. And yeah, I'm not in the mood for I'm having a hard time boycotting Amazon. I'm like in the joy category of that. I heard Joy say the other day, and I have so many people that tell me they have tried, but and I've tried, and every time I only go like 4 days without buying something. But I understand, as much as I like Lauren Sanchez, as much as and I've met Jeff Bezos and found him very likable. I understand why people are upset, and it's not just the firing of employees and the conditions of employees at Amazon. It's not just the firing of like a third of the Washington Post. It's it's their closeness to Trump, which is such a horrible administration. So,
well, if I don't get 5 Amazon deliveries every day, then there's a wellness check from the UPS drivers on my wife.
And who's ordering it? Heather?
Constantly. Yes, all the time. All right. Tomorrow we do have a great show, so please tune in. We got the wonderful Stanley Tucci and Asa Gonzalez, who's a really big deal.
She's a huge deal.
Yeah, and we'll see you tomorrow.
Behind the Table is executive produced by Brian Teta. Supervising producers are Nathan Getty and Summer Shake, with associate producer Emily Darcy and editor Brian Davis. Our director of publicity is Laurie Hogan, and our senior manager of production operation is Enza Dolcenini. From ABC Audio, Trevor Hastings serves as senior producer, with director of podcast programming Josh Cohan.